Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 137 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate, and I am super excited if you've gotten up this Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. to join us. Or if you're on the West Coast, I don't even know what time it is. It's really early.
Way too early. Way too early.
Yes, or if you are catching this on the replay. Now, as always, if you think this content is valuable for anyone in your network or your circle, please this morning hit the share button and share the love. Now, as you guys know, we are in our big back to school and transition interview series for the whole entire month of August. And I am so excited to welcome a brand new guest here to our show. She has so much knowledge to share, and me and her have so much synergy right now as we both are going through the transition process. So I'd like to welcome to all of you Catherine Hughes. She is the Director of Family and Support Community Engagement at Achieving True Self and the producer of the Caffeinated Advocate. Good morning.
Cheers.
I
would not be a caffeinated advocate without my coffee. And it is early, so I need plenty of it.
Yes. And, you know, this morning we were going to kind of talk all things transition. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about that aging out process where our young adults turn either 18 or stay until the age of 21. What are the opportunities, the struggles, and the opportunities that come to us after that age? And so first, before we kind of take a deep dive into that, Catherine, can you let the audience know just a little bit more about yourself?
I would be happy to. So thank you, Tammy, for having me on this morning. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Catherine Hughes. I am the Director of Family Support and Community Engagement with Achieving True Self. We are an applied behavior analysis provider in homes and communities across Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. We also offer training, consultation, and community outreach. And I am the head of the Caffeinated Advocate. I am an author and blogger. I am involved with a few collaborations right now. It was published back in the spring, and we're kind of revising our collaboration into something beyond family stories, and we're kind of making it more of a guide, if you will, with some resources. So that's forthcoming. We're very close to our next publishing gig for that. I'm involved in another collaboration about mental health challenges, and we'll be sharing more about my family and our experiences. And I also continue to blog at the Caffeinated Advocate, sharing my stories and chapters of what I like to call our living, breathing story.
Right. I love it. I love it. Now you have one son, right?
One son. My son, Christian, is 21. It's been a roller coaster of a journey. I also live with my mom. She's affectionately called Mama Betty, nicknamed by my coworkers. So when I'm talking about Mama Betty, that's what I mean. And we also have a lot of fur balls. So I have a pretty hectic, busy household. But Christian is my one and only, and truly my why.
And can you tell us a little bit more about Christian, his, diagnosis, kind of that transition through school, these high school years, and now, because he's 21, obviously, we chatted about that. He left school at the age of 18, correct?
Yes, he left school at the age of 18. So backtracking a little bit, Christian was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, which is a diagnosis on the autism spectrum. He was diagnosed at 3.5. It was actually a pretty traumatic incident that led to Christian's diagnosis, but I'm thankful that that situation led me to getting his diagnosis quicker and getting us into services. He is truly a poster child for ABA services. He also had speech and occupational therapy and a great support system through school. As we transitioned through school, truly I started to think of transition at a very early age. So even though our kids with, whether it's autism or any disability, they can participate in IEP, meaning at the age of 14. But truly for me, I was thinking about this back in like first grade and second grade, wondering what is life going to be like as he gets older? So we were constantly preparing and always setting the bar as high as we could and never setting our goals too low, because we knew that he had that ability. Truly what he struggled with over the years is his self-confidence more than his knowledge. He's a very bright young man, but because he is at that end of the spectrum where I really hate to use high functioning, low functioning, but those are terms that a lot of folks are familiar with, so I'll use that for argument's sake. But because he's higher functioning, he recognizes and has a huge self-awareness of who he is and what his differences are. So he does struggle with his mental health and anxiety and depression, and he had test anxiety. So those were challenges we faced over the years. And as we went through school, we continued to prepare and look at what is life going to look like for him. So the decision was, does he stay in school until he's 21 or does he graduate at 18? Again, super bright young man. There was no reason to keep him in school past 18. So I'm going to say something for our listeners this morning that I think is super important. Yes, inclusion is an absolute right. And yes, we can keep our kids in school till 21, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. So you have to look at, what does that path look like for your loved one? What is right for your child? So
Right.
for Chris, it was definitely, he wanted to graduate with his peers. He wanted to walk with them. So that was our path, was pushing him to graduation at 18. He graduated with honors, I'm very proud to say, and he had achieved 2 scholarships for post-secondary education. So when he graduated, we also had, in our state, it's OVR in Pennsylvania, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Looks a little bit different between states, but that's what we used. We had a counselor who met with him once a week and talked about his goals. And his goal at the time was to go to a 2-year community college studying food service, possibly becoming a chef. And that was kind of the path he was put on at graduation. So a few months later, he had started community college in August of 2016. And Tammy, it lasted 6 weeks, and he fell on his face. And I remember that when he withdrew from college, I went with him to turn in his paper to say, you know what, this just isn't right for me right now. And he said to me, Mom, is this because I have autism? Like, why couldn't I do this? What's wrong with me? And I had to tell him, not just, as a mother, but also as a professional supporting family, just like mine. I had to say, Chris, this isn't, necessarily your diagnosis. So many young people don't know what they want to do when they grow up, right? Some 40-year-olds, some of the smartest 40 and 50-year-olds we know don't know what they want to do when they grow up. So I told him, let's take some time, let's find what's right for you. And then we talked to a job coach and we talked to his OVR counselor, and we put him into a program that was more VOTEC, that was food service, but not necessarily a college program for becoming a chef, which was just way too rigorous, and the rigor of college plus, an intense study wasn't right for him. So we took a more hands-on approach. And that program he attended for 1 semester, and he said, Mom, this isn't right for me either. Clunk. Okay, well, what now, right?
Start over. Yep.
It was okay. Yeah, let's back it up, and let's start over. So his job coach helped him to secure a job in our community at a very disability friendly employer in the Pittsburgh area, and he was working at a store at the deli, and was doing well for a few months. And skills, his skills were good, but he was a little slower than others because he's always been slower to process. So he continued in his work, but then he started struggling with the social nuances and, navigating the world of how do you get along with coworkers, interacting with customers, and really had a much better time interacting with the customers and interacting with coworkers. He was confused about sometimes when people were giving him criticisms, whether or not they were bullying him or whether or not they were just giving him constructive criticism. So that was a struggle for him. He moved out of that department due to an interaction with a coworker where, if I'm being quite honest with our listeners this morning, it should have been the other person moved out and not my son, but it made him more comfortable to go to a different area. So he started cashiering. And then there was another incident where, and this gets into a whole other area I'd like to address this morning, is about social healthy relationships with others with our young adults. But he had complimented a young female cashier about her nails and her hair. She had just gotten her nails done. They were super sparkly. Her hair looked pretty. And he said, "You look so pretty today. That's so nice." She went to the manager and filed sexual harassment charges. Christian was no longer comfortable working there. So here we go. Now he's out of a college program. He's out of a VOTEC program. Right. And he's now away from the most disability-friendly employer in the area. So long story short, we moved through a couple other positions, and he always had the ambition to, put in applications and be a go-getter and, really wanted to work. But He then, a few months later, met with the job coach, the OVR counselor, and me, and he said, maybe I need to find something a little bit different. So we said, and I think this is an important question for all of our loved ones, no matter where they are at, no matter what their disability is, what do you want? What is your goal? What makes you happy? What makes you fulfilled? So
Right.
often I've been asked over the years, Tammy, whether it's school or jobs or colleges, where do people with autism go? Where do people with disabilities go? That cannot be our question anymore. It needs to be, what makes you happy? What makes you feel fulfilled? What are your skills? What are your interests?
Right.
And we asked him that question, and he said, I want to help people. He said, I really enjoy food service. I enjoy cooking. That's fun for me. But maybe there's something different I could be doing. I want to give back. He said, I want to help people. So we talked about the placement where my father was before he passed 10 years ago, which is a Medicaid facility in my area for seniors and those with a significant disability.
Okay.
And what we did was we had the job coach take Christian to the facility. It's called Kane. It's in our area. And he went there and asked about volunteer opportunities. He wanted to try out a few different areas like activities, food service, hospitality, to see maybe there's a good fit for me. So in other words, it was kind of like trying on a few pairs of shoes, if you will, to see if he could find the fit for him. So he was volunteering for about 4 months. He was doing activities. He was helping out with the church services. He was exploring the cafeteria. And he applied for a position. And the first time he interviewed was very tough for him. It was probably the most intense interview he had ever had. And he didn't get that first position. But he didn't give up. He kept volunteering. I would get ready for work in the morning. I'd take him to the facility. He would volunteer almost full time. And again, this is volunteer. This is strictly volunteer work, not getting paid a cent. But he said, I'm going to get a job here. I'm going to do it. So about a month later, another job position came open for food service, and he got the job. So he's been there since March, and he has just been on a full-time position, and he is this close. I'm pretty sure he's going to nail it. But he's doing very well there. He does still have some struggles socially with some of his coworkers, and again, truly understanding whether or not they're just joking, whether or not they're making a criticism, or whether or not they're just being a jerk. And I said, Chris, you're not going to get along with everyone, in your job. I mean, we all struggle with that. We all have people we just, we come into the office in the morning and we go, oh God, there she is, there he is. And we don't want to deal with them, right? So that's something that he still struggles with. But all in all, he is doing very well. He gets up and goes to his job every day. He works about 4 days a week. He also has just gotten his driver's license. It took 2 years. Yes. Just got his driver's license, and he just got a car, which what's so funny is the car he got is 1 year older than the one that I had that I literally just traded in a year ago this week. So it's like total deja vu. It's like same color. The only difference is like a chrome bumper. So he's literally driving my old car. And no, it's not my old car. People have asked, like, did you let him buy your old car off the dealership lot? No. But he's driving, and now he's finding his place. He's finding social interactions that mean something to him. So he joined a Bible study, a men's Bible study at a local church. And he's finding these places and these things that he wants to do. So this is something that I really want to hit home with our listeners today, is that this is all about their goals and their dreams and what they want. It's about what fulfills them. We can't think about what do we want? What is our vision? We need to look at what is their vision and try to cultivate that with everything we do when we're supporting them. And the advocacy needs to shift as they get older from ourselves to them.
Right. What truly is bringing them happiness and self-worth.
Yes.
I mean, I always say that all the time. I'm like, could you imagine living a life, your whole entire life, where you don't have anything that you derive self-worth from, that you never get to express your passions and your purpose in doing it and striving. And I think that in listening, and this is what I loved when I spoke, when me and Catherine spoke before this, is that this is one example of continuing to try and try and try again until you find the perfect fit. I think that coming into the world of going from entitlement services, where we are entitled to everything under the age of 21. And I know that might be strong because some parents are like, well, I deserve it. Well, well, we do, right?
We do,
And we can
but
fight for it. But what happens is we get this false sense of security that, you know, we got it all together. And if we argue this and we advocate for it, it's going to get us exactly what we want. Well, when, you know, our young adults turn 21, it all turns into eligibility services. And
yes,
so if you don't fit into that box, if it's not the perfect fit for that organization, that community, that job, your young adult is not going to be able to just, your advocacy is not just going to be able to win that over, because it does change and shift, you know, so much. But you guys have really, you know, fought the fight in trying so many different things and not giving up, you know, on the different opportunities. I mean, in driving, oh my gosh,
yeah.
I wish I could have been there that day that he got his license.
Oh, I have to tell you, I bawled at the driver's license center, and there was a mom sitting next to me on the bench, and she overheard me talking to my mother, and I said, Christian 1, autism 0, and she heard me, and I think then she got it, and she understood why this was such a monumental day for us, and she just looked at me, and she winked, and she said, good job, Mom. And I said, you know what, but it's not about me. It's about him. He fought for 2 years to get that license. He studied the manual, truly ever since he was 16. We got it for him as a birthday present, but he didn't really have an interest in driving yet because he was so young and he was afraid to be behind the wheel, although he always wanted to drive. Chris always had an interest in roads and traffic lights. He was definitely one of those kids with autism that loved Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know what it is about Thomas, but for some reason, so many gravitate to Thomas. But he had this interest in trains and lights and then maps. He is truly my human GPS. Even at a young age, if I didn't know where he was going, before he was speaking very fluently, he would either point or he'd nod towards something if I was going the wrong way. And he'd tell me where to go because he has that ability. That's one of his qualities that, you know, we talk about people with autism sometimes, you know, not always. It's just a myth that everyone has this, you know, extreme ability. But one of his heightened qualities is definitely that he can memorize directions and he can look at something once and then he knows where he's going. So he always wanted to drive, but it was that understanding not only the rules of the road, but then wanting to get behind the wheel and be comfortable behind the wheel, but also the test taking. So it took him 7 attempts before he passed the written test. And it was his test anxiety. He failed the same questions multiple times. And he would tell me, Mom, it's the same questions. But I'd watch him on his app practicing and he would get them right. He'd always get 100%. So I knew it was that test anxiety. So that 7th time, you know, we went in and I said, if you have to take an hour, you take an hour. You take your time, just like you did in school. You can do this. You know this material. So go do it. And it took him about 40 minutes, but he did it.
Yes, and I think that, Catherine, you would agree, kind of what we spoke about before the show, but even integrated into this interview, is that, you know, you're telling your story
Yes.
and how things have gone on your journey.
Yes.
You know, in hopes that, you know, not only does it help us to realize that, you know, there are opportunities out there.
Definitely.
You know,
Yes.
keep knocking on the door. But some people listening, you know, a lot of times will say, well, that's not my kid.
That's not me, and that's not going to happen. He will never drive. She will not go to college. Right.
And that's not our makeup. And I always like to say, you know, we are all in the same body of water, but we're all on different ships. Okay?
Yes.
All looking, we all have these different things to navigate through.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that knowledge is power, and us listening to stories like yours, resources that you've used, it might not be the right fit, but it might just be. And if you don't keep listening, investigating,
Right.
and trying to plan and prepare for what might be the right equation for you,
Right.
you definitely don't want to wait till 18. And like you were speaking to, you started at a very early age thinking, and that's what I'm finding in this space is that our school systems a lot of times start that bridging process, you know, 14, they can come to an IEP, you know, and going on, but people don't realize that sometimes you can sit in job development for a 3-year wait.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly. You can't wait for these things.
Right.
You can't wait till 14, 15, 16, 17 and go, I should have done this. I should have gotten into vocational rehab, or I don't have a case manager and I'm trying to navigate this on my own. You have to have your resources. You have to have your people.
Right. And at that age, I think that there's so much thrown at you, especially for our young adults that are going to
Yes.
need to then, get disability and get on SSI. You're going to need to get guardianship if you are getting full guardianship of them.
Mhm.
So as a parent, you have so many things, like all these new things thrown at you that you're navigating through. And if you wait till that period of time to start to look at what might be our plan, uh,
Right.
and Catherine, as we spoke about before the show, all of our makeup is different. So you have one child, you and your what is your mom's name? Your mama,
Mama Betty.
Mama Betty.
Mama Betty.
Your support system, you know what I'm saying, with Mama
Yeah.
Betty, and that's kind of your makeup. And how are you going to figure that out?
Right.
For me, I have been the single mom, of four. All of my
Mhm.
kids are aged, but now all of my son's siblings are growing
Yeah.
how in their lives. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? The things that they're
Right.
doing. And so you have to really start to strategically not only look at your young adult's life, I think,
Mhm.
but your life and
Sure.
and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
This is where I live. This is where supportive care is. These are where my supportive family members are.
Mhm.
What does it really look like long term for job,
Mhm.
development? Do we
Mhm.
think it might be something like you internally knew that your son could achieve part-time and possibly even full-time, like as you being his mama bear, you knew that inside,
Mhm.
and I think as
Right.
mama bears, whether we want to face it or not, we can kind of guesstimate to say we're going to push for the best, but we need to be honest with ourselves to say this is where the end of the road, what is that,
Right.
the rubber
Right.
might breathe the concrete.
Yeah. And it's not going to be a perfect journey. You're going to hit so many stumbling blocks just like we have. And that's not to say that Chris is without struggle. He definitely still
Right.
is.
Right. I mean, and how many times that he has tried different things and tried again. I mean, he's quite an inspiration.
Thank you.
That push is amazing. What would you say? Now you are in obviously this one area, on the East Coast,
Hmm.
area.
Yeah.
What are some of your main resources that you think have been so valuable to you in your area and even outside of your area?
So where I am in Pennsylvania, I'm in this hot spot of PA, if you will. Western PA has a lot of organizations, either grassroots or agencies and different resources. So for us, definitely the job coach, we go through Goodwill Industries, and that's where his job coach comes from. And he's been heaven sent. He has been a huge supporter for Chris and truly a huge supporter for me in that, journey of never giving up and let's find what works for him and let's create that path. The Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, the counselor that Christian has had since high school, we're very lucky it hasn't changed since then. So he's had the same person for 3 years. Christian also has an outpatient therapist, and we moved on years ago from graduating, if you will, from ABA and moving on to an outpatient setting. And having that person that he can speak to that, isn't mom, isn't family, isn't a friend, someone that can address his mental health, but also be that sounding board has also been very important for him because they've been able to talk about goal setting. And I think that is very important as well. Connecting with other families, even in my work, even though oftentimes I'm the go-to and I'm the support person, I know that other families who have walked this path before me, sharing their ups and downs, no matter where their children are at or what their ability is, I know that my best resource, truly since my son was diagnosed, has been other families just like mine. So I think other families are a huge, important connection. Before graduation, obviously partnering with your school district. I think that once they graduate and if they're moving on to a post-secondary setting, something important for parents and students I like to remember is that many campuses have an Office of Disability Services. So the conversation before that, of course, would need to be, do you disclose or do you not? Well, if you don't disclose, then you can't access these services. But if you do disclose and access these services, you also have to be able to speak about what does your diagnosis look like to you. So that's something very important, not just to access this resource, but for them moving into the world, not just academic, but social. They have to know how their diagnosis impacts them, whatever that is, and say, this is what I need to be successful. This is what works for me. This is what doesn't work for me so well. Here's how you can help me to be successful and independent.
And within this journey and kind of doing that proactive planning, know that after our young adults kind of transition out of that school setting, that as you're saying, like in your area, you have a lot of grassroots efforts
Mm-hmm.
looking at different states. And that's what, the on-air advocate itself is all about, is that we need to stop looking just right here, just in our own towns,
Right.
and look across the board, because we might
What is everybody else doing?
right. One, either can we copy that and make
Yes.
something great in our area,
Yes.
or is it maybe a time that we say, this is a better fit for my young adults? I've known many parents over time that through the transition of the teens to the 20s to the 30s to the 40s to then retirement of their young adult with different abilities, they've actually moved states.
Yeah. A lot of families do. And it used to be for services for young children, so many people moved to Pennsylvania because in Pennsylvania, the medical assistance will pay for so many in-home services and many outpatient services. So I almost felt like a travel agent, if you will, for a few years, because so many people would call and say, okay, I'm moving to Pennsylvania. What area do I go to? What's the best school district? Where can I get services? And how do I get this card? So I would create, the step-by-step process for them and kind of navigate them through that system. Things definitely look different today in 2019, but something I'm really proud of in Pennsylvania is we have an effort called Everyday Lives in Action that's led by the state, and it's truly a focus on people with disabilities living their best life. So it's about what academically do they need, what socially do they need, looking at also self-care and healthy relationships and helping people to understand their body and what does that mean, even their sexuality, what is their interest in relationships, how do they relate with others, and how to protect themselves. But the idea of this whole program is they are going to live their best life, and they have the right to live their best life, regardless of what diagnosis or label or letters come with them.
That's awesome. And, I know that there's probably people listening from other states that are like, oh, our state doesn't have.
Absolutely. And my kids on the couch, as you say so often, is we don't want our kids to be on the couch or downstairs gaming. We want them out there. We want them out in the community and to be a part of it. But there are a lot of states that are truly behind the times, and they're going, well, what do I do?
Right. And that's where I think that if you can discover things that are other places and you don't want to move, sometimes you can bring those into your state,
Yes.
get those to your state representatives to possibly start something, start something going, and here in the state of Wisconsin, we have kind of a little unique makeup. Is we have, in the county that I moved to, which is 50 miles away from all of my family, we have a school that is self-contained. It's a millions of dollars school. It's amazing. And my son was, for many, many years, till about 6th grade, he was mainstreamed and integrated into the regular school system. And at some point, I always say that it's really, there comes a point when you kind of evolve as a parent, and with your, teenage adult and going to young adulthood, that you say, what, this might be a better fit. And not all states offer it. So like we find that in my county, we have people that have moved from like Australia, Hawaii, whatnot, just for our school that goes ages 3 to 21. But the same thing happens. So even though, in that self-contained environment, which is still an amazing environment, as we're here today talking about transition, they all age out.
They do. And the diagnosis does not go away just because they turn 21. We can't hand them a suitcase and say, well, good luck to you.
Right.
Good luck with that thing. Oh, wait, it didn't go away. Well, now what?
You're right. So it doesn't matter, there are a lot of those different opportunities sometimes, but really the story that I have found, and I don't know, Catherine, if you found the same, across the United States is really the same, is that as our young adults age out, whether that be at 18 or 21, it all turns to that eligibility. And
it does. It's so confusing for our loved ones, but also for us as parents. And I can say as a professional myself, I've been in this field now for 15 years, very blessed to have this calling and the knowledge and the connections. But when Christian graduated and then we started having these struggles, I found myself feeling like I did when he was diagnosed at 3, going, what do I do now? But he got these things before. Now I have to fight even harder. And I feel like I'm going 20 steps backwards.
Right. And I think that and that's why I said that false sense of security, because I think we say to ourselves, well, we know, we're advocating. He needs this.
We've been doing this. This is easy.
But they're like, Ma'am, it doesn't matter that he needs that. He doesn't fit into our criteria.
Right.
So it's like,
What do you mean he doesn't fit criteria?
So then you're like, so you mean there's nothing legal I can do? There's nothing that I can do to change this? No, because it
No.
completely changes. The game changes. And
Oh, it absolutely changes. When Christian was 18 and we went for his evaluation with Social Security, it was literally, Tammy, a 20-minute meeting where he went in a room with someone. They came out, they sent a letter a week later, and they said, he's employable. He's not eligible for anything anymore. Good luck. And I went,
this is awesome.
okay, I'm just going to go get on my bike and ride away. And yeah, have a nice day.
Right.
Totally different. Not at all what I expected.
Right. And then, you know, what I think is when we talk about mental health, and I know that you touched just a little bit on that earlier, as mama bears, and I guess we should say daddy bears, daddy bears that
or
are
grandma bears or grandpa bears, auntie bears.
Is that I think that our mental health, I always say, you know, the study is not out. There are no studies out that show what lifelong caregivers mentally go through. We have all of these where the median age is 3 years. A lot of times when we think of the word caregiver, we think of our aging loved ones and how much mental stress. I did an episode on that for our aging loved ones, and the statistic that was out there for aging loved ones, taking care of them for 3 years, was 70 to 75% of those people needed mental health counseling and help after that period of time. To make it through. So think about this as us mama bears and daddy bears and grandma bears that are supporting this. This is a lifelong journey. This is like the long run of this. And so, and also transition of our lives. For some of us, it's changing our careers and the things that we've done for our life and making what is going to be new for that journey. And so, you know, I don't want to shed any, you know, make any lightness on that, is that we really need to reflect on self-care for ourselves, you know, through that journey as well.
We absolutely do. And I'm very transparent in saying I'm still working on that. It's something I promote for parents and caregivers, being a caregiver myself. For those who are familiar with the term sandwich generation, that is absolutely me. I cared for my father until he passed. My mother is not in the greatest health, so she has a lot of needs as well. I have cared for my grandparents before they passed. So I've literally been caregiving since my 20s. And then when I was 22, my son was diagnosed with autism. So I have been at caregiving for a long time, and I can't lie, it has definitely taken a toll on my own mental health, even my physical health. So I've been through my own journey along with, you know, the ups and downs of Christian's journey through the autism spectrum and supporting my own family. So self-care is something I'm still working on that I'd like to say I'm better at, but am I where I want to be? No, absolutely not. So anyone who's listening needs to know that self-care and putting yourself first is absolutely essential, or truly, it's not just cliche. It is true that you cannot be good to anybody else until you're first good to yourself.
Yes. And I think things like you have going, you know, through the Caffeinated Advocate, ways that we can now reach out social media wise, groups that we can join, parenting group. I think it's so important to connect and kind of find your tribe, kind of find those other people that are that journey with you. Because you're really not alone. It's just so many of us, I think, are entrenched in the trenches of trying to find fighting medical stuff, fighting services. We're like, oh my gosh, you know, I want to talk to somebody who gets it and understands, but I'm like, I just, the moments you have, you try to reprieve, you know, and get enough energy, like you're saying, the Caffeinated Advocate, to try to, you know, to keep going. But I do think that is important. So that's something that I have had to really, start doing a lot more of. And I have found through these platforms and the amazing moms and dads and family members that I've met, and I'm sure you have too through your job. And all the different things that you do, how helpful and resourceful that can be. So, you know, with that, I know that there are many ways to connect with you, but what would be the best way if people want to reach out, if they have questions of how did you do this and what were some of the other strategies you used for him getting his driver's license and the job and all of that? What would be the best way for some people to reach out to you?
So there's a few ways to reach me. For anyone who has younger children and you're looking for ABA services, certainly reach out to me through Achieving True Self. We are on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. I can also be reached by email. It's chughes@achievingtrueself.com. And I can also be reached through the Caffeinated Advocate. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. So please feel free to send me a private message. I am truly an open book. I am willing to answer any questions about, my own story or share resources, whether it's about, youth, transition, adulthood. I do speaking both through my job at Achieving True Self and also in the community as the Caffeinated Advocate. So I do speaking engagements. I facilitate support groups. I do outreach. I'm willing to write guest blogs. I'm be on podcasts like this one. So definitely please reach out to me either through Achieving True Self or the Caffeinated Advocate. And please follow my journey and, my stories. And I love connecting with other families and other folks in the community to truly connect with one another and share resources. We never have enough stories.
Right. And are you able to drop all those links below in the comments so that people, some of those links, the major
links?
Yes,
I absolutely will. I will link to the Caffeinated Advocate pages. I will also link to Achieving True Self, and I will also include the link for referrals in case anyone's looking for training and consultation or looking for ABA services for their younger child. I would be happy to share all of that in the comments.
Perfect. And I know that Catherine, as well as I, if you guys want to share your story more, if you have questions below, though me and Catherine we're in that same body of water because we're going through that. I'm a little bit on the other side of the spectrum with needs and opportunities, you know what I'm saying, for my son, but all the same, we're still here.
We are absolutely here.
And so definitely drop any of those things below and we would be happy to reach out to you and give whatever advice that we can. So with that, Catherine, thank you so much for spending the last 38 minutes with us this morning at this early hour. I'm so excited to have you on. Can't wait to have you on again and for us, to discuss more of our journeys together.
Yes.
If you guys want to know any more about the On Air Advocate or the services we offer, you can head on over to onairadvocate.com. If you want to become a part of our private community, you can head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you into our private Facebook group. So with that, thank you so much, Catherine. We will talk again soon. Happy Thursday.
Bye, everyone. Happy almost Friday. Thank you.
Yes. And as you would say, stay caffeinated.
Cheers.
Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.